Domino's did $19.1 billion in sales last year across 21,000 stores in over 90 markets. Now, most people see that and think that must just be good pizza. But it's not the pizza, it's the playbook. And I had to find out what it was. So my team and I dug in to figure out exactly how Domino's built a global empire and why even today they dominate every competitor in their space. Now, if you were to ask any of the top operators how Domino's won, they'll give you the same three words: simplicity, speed, and reliability. And that's exactly how they scaled faster, delivered better, and outlasted everyone without having the best product on the market. And so in this video, I'll go through exactly the 5 principles responsible for turning them into the very empire that they are today. I'm going to talk about what those principles are, why they work, and the exact steps to install each one this week in your restaurant. And so by the end of the week, you'll have a clear system to make your restaurant run sharper, faster, and more profitably, just like Domino's. That said, let's jump right into it. So the first principle I'm going to show you today is arguably the one most responsible for how by the 1980s, a single Domino's store could deliver nearly twice as many orders per hour as an independent pizzeria without extra staff. Now, if you've ever worked a dinner rush, you know that chaos. Tickets piling up, the phone's ringing, drivers waiting for boxes that aren't ready. Every single second feels small, but when you stack them together, that's what separates being busy from being behind. Domino's figured that out decades ago. They realized that the difference between a good restaurant and a great one wasn't flavor, it was flow. And so what they did is they built their entire empire on one simple rule: simplicity drives speed. Now, what does that actually mean? Well, for Domino's, it meant removing every single unnecessary choice inside the kitchen. The reason for that was because every single extra choice was one more opportunity for hesitation, and every hesitation cost more time for the staff. And so one of the biggest ways Domino's did this was through what they called constrained menu logic. Now, that's just a fancy way of saying we only sell what we can make fast. And so what this meant was Domino's didn't offer 5 different crusts, 12 different sauces, or limited time experiments. They stuck to a core menu that covers about 80% of demand because that's what sells every day and that's what they can execute perfectly every single time. Now, why does this matter? Well, the reason is because when you trim the menu, you trim thinking time, and thinking time is the silent killer of throughput. Now, let's actually see what that looks like in practice. If you think about a busy hour, every time a cook pauses, checking which sauce to use, hunting for the cheese scoop, guessing what size box to grab, that's 5 seconds gone. Now, 5 seconds doesn't actually sound like much, but watch what happens when you do the math. So if you take 10 small pauses per order, 5 seconds each, that's about 50 seconds lost per order. Now, if you run that across 65 orders in a single dinner rush, you've just burnt 3,250 seconds. That's 54 minutes gone. That's almost an hour where pizzas could have been out, drivers could have left earlier, and the line could have cleared faster. And for Domino's, an hour of lost throughput isn't just a minor inconvenience, it's money on fire. Because when you make promises like it's gonna be 30 minutes or your order will be free, an hour lost can wipe that profit off an entire shift. And so they attacked complexity like it was the enemy. And so every station was standardized, the sauce ladle always sat in the same spot, the cheese bin always weighed the same, and every topping had a fixed scoop, size, and position. They didn't rely on what you would call chef instinct. They relied on repeatable flow, the same motion in the same order every single time. And by doing that, they cut hundreds of micro decisions out of their system. And when you reduce decisions, you reduce mistakes. And that's how by the 1980s, Domino's could deliver twice as many pizzas per hour as a local shop with the exact same amount of staff members. And the most important thing is that they weren't faster because they worked harder. They were faster just because they worked simpler. And so if you want to implement something like this for your restaurant, here's exactly how to apply that same principle this week. Action item 1 is to pull your product mix report. It's basically a report from your POS that lists every item you sold, usually over the last month or quarter, sorted by how many units you sold of that item. Now, once you have that report, what you want to do is scroll to the bottom 10 to 15% of items, the ones that basically barely move, and realize that those are your friction points. Now, I'm not going to tell you to delete them forever, but what I want you to experiment with is to just hide them during your peak hours. And so what you can do is on your POS, just mark them as unavailable between maybe 5 and 8 p.m. And the reason for this is because your team won't waste time prepping, stocking, or second guessing orders that hardly sell anyways. And what that will allow is to free their time to focus on items that keep the oven full. The second thing that you want to do is to standardize your stations. So walk your line before the rush and make sure everything lives in the exact same place every single shift. And so your sauce ladle, as an example, keep that in your same spot. Or the cheese bin, pre-weight that. Or the toppings, keep them in the same order from left to right. And the reason I say that is because when your team doesn't have to think they can stay in rhythm. And the problem with guessing is it breaks rhythm, and rhythm is what makes the kitchen feel calm even when you're totally slammed. Now, the last thing that you want to do is just pre-stage your top sellers. So before service, prep boxes, sauce cups, and toppings for your 3 highest selling items. And the reason for this is because most of the time lost during rushes isn't actually cooking time, but it's setup time. And so if the materials are ready, every ticket flows straight through the line instead of stopping to reload. And the way in which you'll know that these 3 action items have worked is by Friday night, all you want to do is look at the numbers in your POS or kitchen display. And what you should realize is that your average make per order should have roughly dropped 10 to 20%. The reason for this is because the dead seconds you used to lose to decisions are gone, because the layout and reputation we did beforehand is now there handling that for you. The second thing that you should see is around your remake rate, the count of orders redone because of mistakes. And as you would have seen, these should have fallen as well because of the tighter menu and standardized line, leaving less room for confusion. And if both of those move in the right direction, even slightly, you've just increased output capacity without adding a single personal dollar to your labor. And that's the Domino's play. They didn't just win because they had better ingredients, they won by making simplicity their strategy. And when you master simplicity, speed follows automatically. Now, the second principle behind Domino's success, and one that almost every independent restaurateur gets wrong, is their obsession with never missing an order. Domino's built an empire on a simple belief. If a customer is trying to order, they should never hit a dead end. And that one rule shaped every system that they built inside of Domino's. You see, in the 1980s, while most pizza shops were focused on recipes, Domino's was building a system to catch every single attempt to order. Because in the 1980s, when local shops still relied on one ringing phone, Domino's had created dedicated phone lines per store so no call went to a busy tone. Then by the 1990s, they were routing overflowed calls to shared stores and centers, so even if one store was slammed, another store or center could answer. Then came 2007, where they focused on online ordering. Whilst others debated whether people would even order pizza on the internet, Domino's built it. By 2011, they had a full mobile app, and just a few years later, they were experimenting with voice AI technology. Now, the crux of Domino's always being at the frontier of technology in the industry was that every leap forward came from the same obsession: never let intent die unanswered. You see, most restaurants think they have a sales problem, but Domino's realized early on that they didn't have a sales problem, they had a sales capture problem. Because the truth is, most sales problems are just missed attempts to order. So let's do the math. Say your restaurant gets 80 calls a day. Now, say due to multiple people calling at the same time, staff being busy, serving customers walking into the restaurant, you only get to answer about 70% of those calls. That's 56 calls answered and 24 missed. Now, say your average order value is $25. What if only half of those missed calls would have been orders? Well, that's 12 orders times $25, which means $300 gone in one single night. Do that every single day, and you're losing over $9,000 a month or $108,000 a year, simply because no one picked up the phone. And that's simply unbelievable. But now scale that logic. Domino's has 6,000 stores across the US, and for them, that would mean leaving $500 million on the table every single year. And by this point in this video, you should obviously realize that that is not something Domino's would have let sacrifice. And so what they focused on was building systems to ensure that every potential channel for an order was always able to be taken. And so how did Domino's actually solve this? Well, like I said, the first thing that they did was fix the phones. Back in 1980s, most pizza shops had only one phone sitting on the counter. When it rang, whoever was closest, usually a cook, would wipe their hands and answer. Now, say that cook was busy, the next caller just got a dead tone. And so obviously, Domino's saw that as money slipping through their fingers. So they did something no one else was doing at the time. They added dedicated phone lines just for orders. Then they went a step further and hired dedicated staff members whose only job was to pick up calls and take orders. That move alone solved one of the biggest bottlenecks in their business: missed demand. But of course, one person can only handle one call at a time, and when Friday rush hits, phones still stack up. And so Domino's built overflow routing, connecting stores together so that if one location was too busy to answer, calls automatically rolled to other stores that could. Now, it sounds simple, but imagine this in practice. You're a customer calling for pizza, and someone's always answering. That level of reliability builds trust. It turns a one-time buyer into a repeat customer. People don't think, hey, I'm just gonna try another place. They think Domino's will always pick up no matter what. But obviously, this system came with a massive cost. You needed more phone lines, more payroll, and consistent retraining every time staff left. And so each store became a miniature call center, and that just got too expensive. Domino's was spending millions just to keep phones answered. And yes, don't get me wrong, it worked, but it wasn't scalable. And so they did what only a company obsessed with efficiency would do. They started investing in automation. Over the years, Domino's poured hundreds of millions of dollars into solving this problem permanently. Answer every single customer instantly without needing another human. And that thesis is what eventually led to the development of their AI voice ordering system, the same technology that powers their Domino's AI system today. But to be honest, I don't even want to mention that right now because that deserves its own section. The reason for that is it wasn't just another channel. It was the final evolution of everything they've learned about capturing demand. Now, after fixing all this phone problem just before the AI, they then built an online ordering system. By 2007, Domino's were on the frontier of online ordering. They were the first major pizza chain to launch fully online checkout. And so online meant that there was no busy signals, no misheard toppings from human errors, no waiting on hold. This was great for customers and for Domino's. Every online order meant one less phone call tying up the staff. And obviously that meant one less opportunity for a disappointed customer because they weren't going to get put on hold. And with how much they were spending on human capital and the technology around routing the calls, this was just cheaper, faster, and more accurate than all that human labor. After the online ordering came the app, and with it, the convenience built into what they called muscle memory. You see, Domino's realized that most of their customers were repeat buyers ordering the same things again and again. So why start from scratch each time? They added saved profiles, stored addresses, and made this thing called one-tap reordering. And that tiny change removed 4 or 5 steps, meaning that customers were more likely to order again more often without having to think twice. Now, when you look at these 3 things, it seems like Domino's had everything figured out. But Domino's knew better. Even with streamlined phone systems, overflow routing, and online ordering, people were still calling, and Domino's was burning cash on human labor and those multiple systems. You see, customers kept calling to place orders, they called to check in if the store was open, they called to ask about toppings, or to confirm the delivery time on their order. And here's the problem. Humans forget. They get busy, they rush calls, they skip the upsell. They don't always remember returning customers or what that customer ordered the last time. And Domino's realized that even with all their progress, human limitations were still the choke point. And so they asked a different question. How do we answer every call 24/7 better than a human, one that never forgets, never gets tired, always upsells, always remembers the customer, and delivers the same great experience every single time? And the answer was pretty simple. AI. Now, Domino's had an advantage that most restaurant owners don't. They had the capital to pour millions of dollars into investing into their own voice AI system. They invested in technology that could handle every call across thousands of stores instantly, capture every order, and never let a customer fall through the cracks. And it worked. For stores that have their AI, this now means 100% answering rate, upsells becoming automatic, and those locations are now sounding polished, consistent, and personal without needing to retrain staff every few months. And that's one of the biggest reasons Domino's still dominates local competitors today. When customers call, they know someone will pick up every time. Now, of course, most independent restaurants don't have Domino's money or infrastructure. And look, this might be a wild guess, but I assume that you're not in the position to spend millions building your own voice AI system. And obviously, this absolutely sucks. These massive corporate chains get to pour millions into infrastructures like AI voice ordering to capture all the orders and slowly kill independence. And the truth is, we actually realized that we could do something about this. You see, I grew up in my parents' restaurant, and I started answering phones for them from the age of 9. And I realized that every single missed call was missed revenue. And while mom and pops didn't have the cash to solve that, these big players were dominating the market by pouring millions into technology. And that's exactly one of the main reasons that I decided to build Certus, the company which I am co-founder and CEO of. You see, Certus AI is an AI voice agent for restaurants that answers every single phone call, takes orders, processes deliveries, and books reservations, all while sounding exactly like a human and integrating with your point of sale and reservation system. We basically give restaurants access to having this cutting-edge technology without having to spend millions for it. We're even backed by Y Combinator, the same company that were the first investors in DoorDash and Instacart, with the goal to give restaurants the power that these billion-dollar chains have and help them save hundreds of thousands in revenue every single year. And that's the main reason restaurants use Certus, to level the playing field with these Goliaths and to have the same technology that they're using to win with their customers. And so with all that said, if there's one thing that I would say that you can focus on this week with how to copy Domino's, it would be to fix your phone capturing. Because the truth is that everything else, such as your menu design, your speed, or even your marketing, doesn't actually matter if your phone rings and no one picks up. Because that's the one moment where a hungry customer decides whether you earn their money or lose it. Domino's spent decades and millions making sure that never happened to them. They built lines, routing systems, call centers, apps, and then AI, all just to guarantee that every single call got answered and every single order got captured. But to solve these problems today, you don't need their budget to do the same thing. You just need the right systems. And that's what Certus AI does for every single restaurant. It answers every call, every time, with perfect consistency. It doesn't forget, it remembers your customers, it doesn't get flustered, it doesn't miss upsells, it doesn't need a break. It's the same operational power that Domino's built, but now accessible to any restaurant in a single day. And so before you think about new ads, new menu items, or new staff, potentially the biggest fix that you can do is to fix your phone line. Because if you think like Domino's, you realize that usually it's not a sales problem, it's a sales capturing problem. And if you do copy the thesis of Domino's, you would understand that every other improvement only compounds once you capture 100% of your demand. And so just to recap, Domino's didn't just make ordering easy, they made not ordering impossible. They removed friction at every step. The phones, the web, the app, the voice AI, whatever it is, until this process for them was bulletproof. And I truly believe that's going to be one of the most important things going forward. Because today, most restaurants still lose orders the same way Domino's used to. Missed calls, hold time, no after hours coverage. The difference is, you no longer need a full tech team and hundreds of millions to fix it. Tools like Certus AI now give restaurants the same always-on, never-miss system Domino's spent decades building. And like we said in Principle 1, simplicity made them fast, but in Principle 2, we learned that it was demand capture optimization that made them rich. And more importantly, all those tools that used to give them the advantage are now accessible to everyone. Now, the third principle may seem a bit counterintuitive to most, since it revolves around not focusing on what most restaurants think are the right things, like making fancy menus, improving decor, or chasing viral posts that drive traffic. And the reason I say this is because Domino's didn't care about any of that. They realized long ago that customers don't come back for theater. They come back for reliability, especially for the kind of food that Domino's makes. So Domino's built their business on one principle: throughput over theater. And what this meant was that every move, every system, every square foot of their store was designed for one thing: getting more orders out the door faster without breaking. Now, how they actually did this was by focusing on three main things, and the third thing is going to absolutely blow your mind. First was ensuring everyone in the team understood that making pizza was almost like running a production line. Think about it. When you walk into a Domino's kitchen, it doesn't look like a restaurant. It kind of looks like a factory. Every station is clearly defined. Dough, sauce, cheese, toppings, oven, cut box, handoff, whatever it is. Each person is responsible for their own action, and every motion flows in one direction. Now, this may seem excessive, but the reason for doing this was simple. When the flow never crosses, there's no confusion, no waiting, no wasted movement. That's what throughput means. More pizzas made per minute, not more people working harder. And more importantly, they track this obsessively. If the line slowed by even 15 seconds per order during a rush, that store would lose dozens of deliveries an hour. And so Domino's built timers into every step. They knew exactly how long dough stretch, topping load, and oven travel should take. The second thing was focus on optimizing every handoff. When a pizza leaves the oven, there's no kind of who's taking this moment. There's a cut and box station with 2 cutters during peak hours, a hot shelf labeled by delivery zone, and a driver staging area organized by a promise time. And so this means that drivers weren't wandering or sitting in the store on their phones. They were assigned runs before the pizza even left the oven. And the reason they focused so heavily on this was because every delay after baking is a dead time. The pizza's cooling, the driver's waiting, and the customer's clock is ticking. Domino's eliminated that dead time before it even started, which allowed them to get pizzas to customers faster than anyone. And the third thing that they did, which I personally thought was incredibly interesting, because this is something I see the total opposite of with a lot of our customers at Certus AI, is that Domino's purposely shrank their delivery radius. Now, most restaurants think expansion means more distance, but Domino's went the opposite direction. They built more stores closer together in what they called the fortressing strategy. And by doing that, they cut delivery radiuses down just to a few minutes, which meant hotter pizzas, faster drop-offs, and happier customers. And so every minute saved in delivery time meant more pizzas delivered per hour and more orders fulfilled, meaning more revenue per shift. Now, the reason Domino's went through all of this is the most important part. They realized bottlenecks like delayed drivers or slow kitchen lines are what breaks promises. And broken promises kill repeat demand. You see, when you tell a customer 30 minutes and deliver in 45, you don't just lose a tip, you lose trust. Domino's understood that only throughput can fix this. And so when your system moves like clockwork, your promises become reality, and that reliability compounds over time. And so with principle 3 in mind, let's think about how you can copy it this week. And now I've mentioned this in previous videos before, but the first step is always to map your flow. So take a whiteboard and write out every step from the order coming in, the making of the food, the baking of the food, the cutting of the pizza, the boxing of the pizza, and the handoff. And when you've mapped this, go ahead and actually walk your line during a rush. Watch where people hesitate, backtrack, or wait on someone else. And those are your bottlenecks, and those are the things that you want to solve. Step 2 is to time your stations. Use your phone timers and record average make times for each step during peak hours. The reason for this is because you can't fix what you can't measure. And once you see the slowest stage, circle it, and that's your red block. And that's what you want to solve. The third step is to try and remove one bottleneck every single week. Add a second cutter during peak hours, label your hot shelf by order type, mount a visible promise time clock where everyone can see it, whatever it is. But the main reason that you're going to do that is because removing one physical bottleneck can literally double throughput during your rush, depending on how big that bottleneck was. And the fourth thing is obviously now go ahead and track the impact. By Friday, check the 3 metrics. Orders fulfilled per 15-minute block. That should have obviously risen. The second thing is around promise time accuracy. If you promised 25, how long did it actually take? And the goal is that should have tightened. And the third thing that you want to track is what I like to call the where's my order calls. Those should have hopefully dropped. And now, as funny as that sounds, the point is that when those 3 metrics move, you'll know that you've stopped performing what Domino's calls theater and started actually producing what they call throughput. And so if I had to wrap up principle 3 in one sentence, it would be this: nothing else matters until you can keep the promises that you make. And that rarely starts with trying to focus on creating viral TikTok posts. It starts by optimizing throughput. Now, the fourth principle revolves around using simple language to make thousands of more in revenue. You see, most restaurants don't realize this, but the difference between a great shift and a bad one isn't the food or the staff count. It's the words used at the counter and over the phone. And you see, Domino's figured that out decades ago. Actually, at this point, it almost feels like they figured out everything decades ago. But what they realized is that if you can control the words, you can control the outcome. And so they built their operations around one subtle but powerful truth: language makes money. Now, yes, that sounds great, but what does that actually mean? Well, Domino's doesn't let staff wing it. You see, every phone script, every upsell line, every recovery response, it's all designed, tested, and standardized. The words they use, the tone they use, the way that they confirm an order, none of it is really random. You see, every phrase is engineered to make customers feel guided, understood, and confident in what they're buying. And when those same short lines are repeated thousands of times a day across thousands of stores, that actually prints money. Now, the reason this works so well is because humans hate making decisions. They prefer to be guided. And Domino's figured out that people are more likely to buy when you tell them what more people do rather than when you give them an open choice. And so a simple line like, "Hey, most people add cheesy bread with that. Want me to add one?" That doesn't actually sound like a sales pitch. It sounds like help. But over a single Friday night, that one sentence can bring in hundreds of extra dollars. And if you multiply that across every store, every hour, you start to see how Domino's turns simple phrasing into a system that quietly adds millions in profit every year. Now, it obviously doesn't just stop at upsells. This language also reduces refunds. Because when you finish a call by repeating, that's 1 large pizza, extra cheese, and 2 dips, ready in 18 minutes, you prevent confusion and misheard orders before they ever happen. And to be honest, it's not actually about the scripts. It's about precision through repetition. And that's something that I see every day with restaurants using Certus AI. These small, consistent behaviors compound fast. Now, the reason AI is so good at it is because it doesn't forget, it doesn't rush, and it never skips the upsell. Now, how did Domino's actually put this into practice? Well, the first thing was the one-choice upsell. Domino's learned that asking, "Hey, would you like to add anything else?" was actually a terrible question. It's too open-ended and makes customers think too much and adds too much cognitive load for them to make a decision. And so instead, they switched to, "Hey, most people add cheesy bread or a drink. Would you like me to add that to yours?" That's one clear choice. It uses social proof, it's easy to say yes to. That one change lifted their average order value across the chain. The second thing that they focused on was what's called the read back rule. Now, before a call ends or a customer walks away, every Domino's employee should read the order back out. So, "Hey, that's 1 large pepperoni, extra cheese, 2 dips, ready in 18 minutes. And yes, it sounds robotic, but what I would say is it's kind of like insurance, because every read back prevents a refund, which stops an argument and saves a repeat call later or a repeat customer. Now, the third, and this is one of my favorites, is the 3-line complaint save. You see, when something goes wrong, Domino's kind of uses this 3-line recovery script, which revolves around, "Hey, I've got you, here's what I can do, and here's how I'll prevent it next time." That's it. It's short, it's calm, it's confident. And the reason is because when a customer complains, it's not the time to explain, it's the time to reassure. You see, this approach turns angry calls into trust-building moments. The customer leaves feeling taken care of, not dismissed. And that's very crucial when it comes to a customer-focused industry like hospitality. And so, pretty simple stuff that you can do this week. The first thing is add the one choice upsell. Train everyone who answers the phone or works the counters to say, hey, look, most people add your best side. With that, want me to add that to your order? And so, for example, in my family's restaurants, when I used to answer the phone at the age of 9, if someone ordered a butter chicken, I would usually say, hey, most people usually get a butter or garlic naan with that. Would you like to add one? That was usually a perfect side that paired well with it, and it was actually true. And a lot of the times, if people hadn't already added that to their order, they would say yes. And with this, I would definitely say the key is to keep it casual, not pushy. And then at the end of the week, obviously track how many of those items were actually sold. And by the end of the week, you'll see that the sales on those items should have risen almost instantly. The second thing is pretty straightforward. You should already be doing this, but if not, standardize the readback. End every call or every counter interaction in the same way. So that's one chicken tikka, one naan, 2 mango lassis ready in 15 minutes. That small step alone will cut refund calls and remake orders in half. And then step 3 is to use the 3-line save method, which obviously is one of my favorites. What I would even suggest is to take a sticky note and post this near your phone. But what I would suggest is your staff should know the 3 things are, I've got you, here's what I can do now, and here's how I'll prevent this the next time. And what this does is it teaches the staff how to take ownership, solve fast, and stay calm without needing a manager or even you every time something goes wrong. Now again, what to track? Well, by Friday, check 3 numbers. The upsell rate on your top 3 sites. Hopefully that should have climbed at least 10 to 20%. Second thing is your average order value. Hopefully that has risen because you're now suggesting sites. And then the third thing is hopefully your refund or complaint count has dropped. And you see, when those numbers move, you'll know that you've unlocked what Domino's discovered again years ago. Well, it was the right words, make more money, than the right marketing. Because marketing can get people to call, but the language used right makes sure they buy, come back, and bring friends. Now, last but not least, we're going to cover Principle 5, the one that has led to Domino's enormous success as being one of the biggest pizza franchises in the world. And this is focusing on scoreboards rather than stories. Now, what I mean by that is that most restaurants manage through stories, and this is a mistake that we made, but you know how it goes. At the end of the shift, you barely realize what happened, what went wrong, and you kind of end the day with saying something like, that felt busy, or I think we did better than last week. But the problem is that doesn't scale. And so Domino's, they pride themselves in not running on stories, but running on scoreboards. You see, they realize that when you make the numbers visible, live, in real time, people stop guessing and they actually start performing. And that shift from how we feel to what's actually happening is one of the biggest reasons they became the most operationally disciplined restaurant chain in the world. To make this clear, think of the last time that you walked into a Domino's. You would have very likely seen something glowing on the wall. Now that glowing thing is a digital dashboard showing the heartbeat of that location. So what orders are in queue, the average prep time per order, which orders are where, and which orders are on their way out, things of that sort. Now that wasn't just put there for fun, that was put there for purpose. You see, managers, drivers, and kitchen staff all stare at that same live board, updating second by second. And so if the queue grows, they know to pull in backup help. If make time spikes, they see exactly where the slowdown is happening. If drivers are backing up, they know deliveries are late before customers start calling. It's visibility that creates accountability. And the best thing is that everyone knows the score. And when everyone knows the score, performance naturally rises. Now hell, I can even vouch for this myself, outside of the restaurant. You see, when we keep a live dashboard open in our company of Certus in terms of how many calls we're taking for our restaurants, how much money we've generated our restaurants, and that kind of sort of thing, what that does is that it motivates the entire team. And the reason this works is because what's visible gets fixed. And when you measure performance in real time, people start to take ownership in real time. You don't have to nag anyone. You don't need to guess who slipped. The data tells the story for you. And at Domino's, every shift revolves around 3 core metrics. It's the queue size, so how many orders are waiting, the average make time, so how long it takes from order to oven, and the driver out time, so how long it takes to leave after the pizza's baked. And those numbers are like a scoreboard in a game. You can't hide from them. And that's exactly the point. When a team sees the score live, the energy changes. People start moving faster, communicating clearer, and fixing issues before they snowball. It's not, we'll review this next week, it's the queue's up 5 orders, let's go. And what this does is, it replaces emotion with execution. Now to ensure this type of efficiency for you, here are 4 simple steps that you can focus on. The first thing is to mount your own scoreboard. Now, I don't mean to have something fancy. You could even just have a whiteboard in your kitchen where everyone can see your main numbers. And what you could do is track the 3 numbers that Domino's does or whatever you want, but for them it's orders in queue, average make time, and answer rate of their phone maybe for you. And what I would do is try to update them daily, or if possible, live through your point of sale system, your KDS, or if you have some sort of a tracking system. And I can promise you that when the numbers are visible, they will become a part of your culture. The second thing that you can do is run a 3-minute post-shift review. And so what that is after every lunch or dinner rush, gather your team and ask 3 questions. What slipped? What's the one fix that we can do? And who will own that fix? Then end the conversation. No stories, no excuses, just clarity. And that's exactly how you turn chaos into control. Then step 3 is to track variance weekly. And so at the end of each week, look at how much your numbers change day to day. If your average make time swung from 8 minutes on Monday to 12 minutes on Friday, that's your bottleneck. Your goal isn't just to improve the numbers, but more importantly, to actually stabilize them. And if you can run these 3 things for even 1 or 2 weeks, you'll know it's working when 3 things happen. The first thing is obviously the numbers start improving. So if your one thing was the queue, that would have dropped. If it was the make time, that would have hopefully tightened. If it was the answer rate, that would have hopefully risen. The second thing that's super important is that your variance shrank week over week. And so what that meant is that you hopefully had less guessing and more consistency. And the third, and this is super important, is that the team starts talking in numbers and not feelings. And if you can make those 3 things happen, that's when you've made the shift from stories to scoreboards. Because Domino's doesn't win by feeling busy. They win by knowing exactly what's happening and fixing it before it breaks. So those are the 5 principles that turned Domino's from a small pizza chain into an operational machine. They didn't do it with better recipes or flashier marketing. They did it with systems, simplicity, demand capture, throughput optimization, language tweaks, and a scoreboard. And the truth is, every restaurant can apply these same ideas today. To make this even easier for you, I've actually put together a document that breaks down all 5 principles, what they are, how Domino's applied them, and the exact steps that you can take to make them work inside your restaurant. To find that, the link's in the description, and you can go and grab that document over there. That's it for this video, guys. If you found it helpful, hit like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.